Just take a moment to read this. Hopefully you can ignore my typos. So a quadratic equation is an equation that's squared. So given a quadratic equation, we can do the following. We can sketch an accurate graph by finding the vertex. The vertex is the highest or lowest point of the graph, and by finding the x-intercepts. And the x-intercepts are the place where the graph intersects the x-axis. Another way of saying that is the place where the graph crosses the x-axis. So if there's something that doesn't make sense, please, of course, pause it, and I'll explain it some more. So the instructions that you are going to get are going to say sketch the graph. And so the graph I'm giving you on this one is y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12. And there is a very specific way that we find the vertex. And remember, the vertex is the highest or lowest point of the graph. There's a very specific way that we find the vertex. And the way that we do that, the x value of the vertex is x equals negative b over 2a. X equals negative b over 2a. And in this equation, a equals 1, b equals 4, and c equals negative 12. Remember, we get those numbers from the equation. So if x equals negative b over 2a, that's going to be negative 4 over 2 times 1. And that negative b over 2a, that doesn't change. The x value of the vertex is always negative b over 2a. That doesn't change. So we do a little simplifying. That becomes negative 4 over 2. And negative 4 over 2 reduces to negative 2. So we have the x value of the vertex. Now we need to find out the y value of the vertex. And the way that we find out the y value of the vertex is just by taking the x value that we got and plugging it into the equation. So we got the x value. We did negative b over 2a, we got negative 2. So we take that negative 2 and we're going to plug that value into the equation for x, because remember, that is the x value. So everywhere you see an x, I'm going to put in negative 2. Now I'm just doing a little simplifying here. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Negative 4 minus 12 more is negative 16. So I have an x value of the vertex and I have a y value of the vertex, which is going to be a point on the graph. The point on the graph of either the highest or lowest point is going to be negative 2, negative 16. That's going to be the vertex. That's either going to be the highest point or the lowest point. And so the next thing that we're able to do is we're able to find the x-intercepts. And if you remember from earlier, The x-intercepts are the place where the graph crosses the x-axis. The place where the graph crosses the x-axis. And the way that we find the x-intercepts is by factoring using Xbox. So yeah, there's a reason why we've been factoring using Xbox. There's a reason for that. It's so that we can sketch our graph. So in the top of the x goes a times c, so 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. And in the bottom goes b, and b is 4. And 6 times negative 2 equals negative 12, and 6 minus 2 equals 4. So I'm going to take those values and fill in the box. So y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12 is the same as y equals x minus 2 times x plus 6. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put both of those factors equal to 0. And when we get to the graph, I'll pause the video and I'll show you why we put both of those values equal to 0. So I'm going to take x minus 2 and I'm going to make it equal to 0. I'm going to take x plus 6 and I'm going to make it equal to 0. Right now you may be thinking, why do we do that? I'm going to show that to you later on the graph. So we end up with two x-intercepts, two places that the graph crosses the x-axis. One of those x-intercepts happens at x equals negative 2, or sorry, positive 2, and the other one happens at x equals negative 6. X equals positive 2 and x equals negative 6. So let's look at the information that we have. My computer was kind of getting stuck on moving up and down, so it'll square itself away in just a moment. So here's the information that I now have. I know that the vertex is negative 2, negative 16. I know that the x-intercepts are x equals 2 and x equals negative 6. And so I'm going to sketch the graph. This is not going to be a perfect drawing. Okay, that's why it's a sketch. You'll see on the calculator what it looks like when it's a perfect drawing. But for right now, this is just a sketch. So I'm going to go over negative 2, down 16, and there's my vertex. And now I'm going to make a point at x equals 2 and x equals negative 6. And I'll pause the video right now. And so all I need to do is connect those. And obviously I'm not a very good artist. I don't even draw straight lines very good. I know it kind of looks like a V when you see it on the calculator. You'll see it looks a little bit more like a U. The calculator is much more accurate than Mr. Eckert is. Taking a little sip of my tea while I'm waiting for the calculator to open up here. So I just want to make sure that the window is defined for me to see the entire graph. I'm going to clear whatever other graphs are here on my calculator, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in x squared plus 4x minus 12. That's our equation. And I'm going to graph that equation and see if the graph looks similar to what we did. I'd say it looks pretty good. So let's just take a snapshot of that and compare it to the graph that we did so that they can be side by side. And I'd say that's right on. Okay, like I said, it looks a lot more like a U than a V because the calculator is much better at graphing than Mr. Eckert is. But it's pretty close, and that's why it's only a sketch. Okay, it's only a sketch.